I felt to do this video today to recap and summarize all the dreams that I've had about the Trans-Tasman Megaquake swarm. These megaquakes will occur off the coast of New Zealand, off the central eastern coastline of New Zealand, so off the southern part of the North Island, perhaps off the northern part of the South Island, certainly off the southern coast of the North Island. And then it looks like two will occur in the Tasman Sea, perhaps close to Australia, perhaps closer to New Zealand. In any case, there will be tsunamis associated with this swarm of potentially up to 4 of these megaquakes. The latest information from my dreams indicates that there won't just be one quake, there'll be a set of 4. So, just to summarize the information about that event, those earthquakes and the associated tsunamis, and then also about the volcanic eruption of Naurahoe and Tongariro, which will follow that quake. So I'm going to focus on stats and kind of simple bullet point figures here, filtering out all the detail and the kind of story type narrative from all the dreams that I've had about it. And I will put in some detail that other people have been given in dreams about this too. I'll throw some of that in there. So, and other note that I'll add is this is with a view to giving people a summarized, simplified picture of what will happen so that you can understand what is coming, so hopefully you can be prepared. And it's that old saying, forewarned is forearmed. I've got that on the about section of the blurb for this channel, and that's what this is about. So you're armed now. You're armed with knowledge of what's coming, and that will hopefully help some of the people out there, some people watching this, maybe even some people who you talk to once you've seen it. So, getting into it. I was told by God / the universe / whatever you want to call it. I consider myself a Christian. Quick note, it's a little bit more complicated than that in the sense that I have a very open-minded take on it, and I take natural law and things like, basic, like the 10 Commandments, deadly serious. I take those deadly seriously, don't get me wrong, but a bit of a free thinker also, so actually I'm closest to a Gnostic or a mystic. But I feel I'm a Christian, I feel that's enough. But I'll say God / the universe / whatever you want to call it, because I understand that some people who watch this won't be Christians, and I want to reach as broad an audience as possible. I don't want to restrict it to any particular belief system, and some people don't like the word God, but they're actually talking about the same thing. For me, that's not a big deal, and I don't think we should get too hung up on the vocab, because, well, to be blunt, from the dreams that I've had, God doesn't care too much about the word you use, It's more about the spirit and the energy that you're in and the relationship you have with this, whatever you want to call it. I think the idea that just because you call it something else makes you evil or a bad person is, quite frankly, childish, immature, and I'm not judging it, but it's unhelpful. Okay, so I don't want to reach just Christians. I want to reach people who are agnostics, atheists, and who are open to evidence, but who don't necessarily have a strong spiritual or religious life. And even people who follow other religions. It's why I say whatever you want to call it. I feel it's all the same God. But a lot of Christians would disagree. The reality is, though, there's so much diversity in the beliefs of individual Christians. In some ways, the term Christian doesn't even mean anything, because I've seen more diversity in spiritual beliefs between different kinds of Christians than I have between Christians and atheists. Like, I'm not kidding. And often Christians will say, they're not Christians. So it's all like, let's not get caught up in semantics and belief systems and let that be a block to reaching as many people as possible and to understanding one another. That's my view. So So I would consider myself a Christian, but I'm also pretty open-minded. So that I haven't done that full blurb on one of these videos, but it's probably about time I did it. So, okay, cracking into it. So, God told me that the Holy Spirit told me that the total death toll from this event in New Zealand, nationwide, will be between 40 and 90,000 people. So that is between roughly 1 and 2% of New Zealand's population. New Zealand currently has a population of about 5.1 million people, at least living in New Zealand. I think at any given time, apparently there's about 1 million New Zealanders living overseas, but it's kind of relevant here. So 5.1 million divided by 100 is 51,000. 51,000 times 2 is 102,000. So 40,000 is just below 51,000, 90,000 is just below 102,000. So it's close to between 1 to 2% of the population dead. That was the range I was given for the country. So for reference, if a disaster of an equal magnitude occurred in the United States, a country with a population that is, off the top of my head, about 65 times greater than that of New Zealand, so, I think it's about 335 million in the US. 100 million divided by 5 million is 20, times 3 for 300 is 60, and then 35 divided by 5 is 7, so I think 67 times, so the US population is 67 times greater. So imagine if this disaster happened there and 1 to 2% of the population died, you would be looking at between 3.5 to 7 million people dead. So this gives you a sense of the scale and the magnitude of this event. 50 to 100,000 people, 40 to 90,000 people might not sound a lot to you. In most other countries, New Zealand has relatively small population compared to most other developed Western countries. It has the smallest population of the Anglo countries, Canada, United States, UK, Australia, but it's significant. It's a lot. I was given the number 3,500 when I was on that cruise ship near the mouth of Wellington Harbour. Looking back, I now believe the Holy Spirit was giving me that number for the total death toll in the Wellington region. I could be wrong, I'm not sure about that. One of the reasons I hesitated on that earlier is that it seemed too low. However, in retrospect, the preparations in Wellington are probably the best of any region in New Zealand. The local government is one of the least corrupt, so they're pretty organised and the money goes to where it should go. People do drills regularly for tsunamis and earthquakes. We did them in my school when I was growing up. They now do tsunami drills in my primary school in Eastbourne. Everyone knows about the risk. Everyone is aware that we in Wellington are well overdue for a large quake. A lot of people even have detailed plans of what they'll do when, not if it happens. So there will be massive devastation in Wellington, but given how well prepared they will be, leaning now towards that 3,500 number, which I talked about in my 30-minute long video about the Hikurangi prophecies. I said I wasn't sure what it meant. I would now say that was the death toll in Wellington that I was being given. So this is all useful information for you to kind of bear in mind as we move forwards. Apparently the Parliament buildings collapse. I'm going to put a link to another video of this prophetic vision which someone else had, because many of us have seen the same stuff. So apparently the Parliament buildings will collapse. The lower Hutt Valley will be flooded. Eastbourne will basically be wiped out. I was given the number that the tsunamis will be roughly, I think, 13 to kind of 15 meters. How high was it? I was given a number of about 13.5 meters for how high the tsunamis will be in Wellington Harbour. Cover that in my video about the dreams of tsunamis hitting Tasmania, which I've already posted. I won't now give you references to which videos I've already been over these stats from. It will take too long. I'm just looking at the clock here. So then I was given the number of 17 meters for how high the waves will be in terms of their run-up height, how high they'll go up hills once they hit the land. That's the number I was given for Days Bay. So let's say 14 meters rounding up. 14 meter high tsunamis in Wellington Harbour, run-up heights 17 meters high in Days Bay. That will probably vary in other areas. So these are large tsunamis. This is around a height of a 4-story building. So yeah, you can go online and look up reports for models and worst case scenario projections for this event. Interestingly, everything we were seeing in visions matches the science perfectly for the worst case scenario for a mega thrust earthquake on the Hikurangi subduction zone and the impact that will have in terms of the quake and the tsunami on Wellington. None of us knew the science before we had the dreams. And then it's kind of an interesting coincidence, isn't it? That the dreams perfectly match those worst case scenarios. It's not a coincidence, that's why. And so if you look at the maps, you'll see the areas that are predicted to be worst affected. Not surprisingly, it's the low-lying areas close to it's close to sea level by the ocean, by the sea. So I don't really need to go through that here. You can look all that information up online if you want to. But briefly to summarize, Lower Hutt Valley, Eastbourne, the Bays, central part of Wellington City, Miramar Peninsula, Isthmus, Seaturn, southern coast suburbs like Island Bay, Ofiro Bay. Yeah, lower-lying areas close to sea will be devastated by the tsunami, obviously. Okay, what else? Okay, there was another dream, a very long prophetic dream account by another guy. His YouTube account name was Kiwi Guy. I will quickly make some points from his video. It's since been taken down since I saw it over a year ago. He saw that Christchurch was so badly damaged it will be abandoned. So repeat, New Zealand's third largest city will be so badly damaged, both by structural damage from the quake and by liquefaction. A lot of Christchurch is built on old wetlands from what I understand, so that's not surprising. It will literally be abandoned, the city. And he saw huge tsunamis hitting Napier, which is a city in the Hawke's Bay region, about a third of the way up the east side of New Zealand's North Island. It will be very close to the epicenter, so that's really no surprise. The tsunamis he saw there were about the height of a 10-story building. They were about 30 meters high. And Napier was just obliterated. Everything below Bluff, that wasn't on Bluff Hill, basically, which is high above the rest of the suburb. But Napier is basically built on billiard ball flat land right beside the sea. So it's going to get annihilated, basically. And I'm suspecting that the highest regional death toll will be in Hawke's Bay. And those tsunamis apparently go for kilometers and kilometers inland in the Hawke's Bay. I saw some pretty harrowing scenes there. I don't have time to get into it in this video. But yeah, Napier will be obliterated, massive destruction in Wellington, but probably going to do not so badly in terms of death toll compared to the other regions because they're so well prepared. Other people have seen there's going to be major damage in Auckland. The whole of New Zealand will feel the quake, it'll be so big. But obviously, the worst destruction will be in the top part of the South Island, so the top 50% of the South Island and the lower 50% of the North Island, because those areas will be closest to the epicenter. Anything else to add? Okay, well, that's all that comes to mind for now. For Australia, I have been shown tsunamis hitting the coast of Tasmania. I've been shown tsunamis hitting the coast of New South Wales. In the dream of the tsunamis hitting the coast of Tasmania, I could see numbers for the death toll in Victoria. Other people have seen tsunamis hitting the coast in Victoria. You can look up these dreams on YouTube. And New South Wales, I've had a friend, as I mentioned in one of these videos, who's had dreams about tsunamis hitting the coast of New South Wales. So thousands, it looks like, will be killed in Australia when this happens too. Just quickly summarizing the details of when this happens. So everything that I've been shown indicates that this earthquake will occur in the southern hemisphere summer between the months of which is between the months of December and February, but with climate change, summer is typically start a little later and finish a little later now. So we could extend that into early March when it will happen. But it happens in summer, happens in the daytime. I've been shown on many occasions it happens between, roughly in the middle of the day. We could say give a wide margin, 9 a.m., between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. That's what it looked like. So it happens in the daytime, it happens in summer. Weather was fairly cloudy in most of these dreams, but that was in Wellington, so it could be different in other places. And there will be a warning, so I've been clearly shown by the Holy Spirit that there will be a warning shot. That will be an 8.3 magnitude quake on the Hikurangi subduction zone with its epicenter just east of Castle Point, which is in the southeast portion of New Zealand's North Island. There will be an associated tsunami warning that goes out for that quake. And that's your kind of final warning to it's close. And when that happens, it'll be weeks or months, perhaps only weeks away, that main quake. So there'll be the smaller release of energy before the main event. That's your warning shot. So please heed the warning when it happens. I do believe it's a when, not an if. Anything else to add? Okay, the volcanic eruption. So after this quake will be followed by an enormous eruption of Mount Naurahoi in Tongariro. On the volcanic explosivity index, this thing is clearly going to be enormous. I got told that the ash is going to go 50 kilometers high into the stratosphere. This looks like it will probably be the biggest volcanic eruption on this planet in at least the last 200 years. The pyroclastic flow will reach at least 30 kilometers north to the southern part of Lake Taupo, where I've seen people being killed by this eruption. The shock wave is so strong that it almost blows people's eardrums out when it hits Wellington, almost 300 kilometers to the south. The whole sky went dark from the ash. It was shown that in one of these streams. It looks like there will also be a kind of a volcanic equivalent of the tectonic warning shot. That is the foreshock, the 8.3 magnitude on the Richter scale foreshock I mentioned for this Trans-Tasman Megaquake swarm. There will be a kind of a warning eruption where a smaller release of ash and a smaller eruption from Ngātahoe before this main gigantic eruption. So I've clearly been shown that in one of my dreams. So there will be a warning shot for that. It's going to be an Planaean, I think maybe an ultra Planaean eruption. I need to check. I think it's going to be between a 5 and a 7 on the volcanic explosivity index. Be absolutely enormous. It might even be so big that it blows Tongariro and Ngātahoe apart, so there's no volcano left, and there'll just be a hole, a caldera there afterwards, which will then fill with water, and we'll probably get a lake. We'll get a Lake Tongariro in that case, just like Lake Taupo. But I haven't been shown that, so I don't know if it's that big. It may just blow the mountain apart, so the geography changes afterwards, which is what happened to Mount Tarawera after the enormous eruption there in the late 19th century, which destroyed the world-famous pink and white terraces. And the volcano just blew apart, and the geography of the area was radically changed, but the volcano was still there afterwards, so I'm not clear on that. I haven't been shown that information. I have been shown in more recent dreams that this is very strange, but I've seen tsunamis on Lake Taupo. But I'm waiting to get more information about that before I make videos about it. But this will be enormous. And is there anything else to add? Obviously, if you're in the path of the pyroclastic flow, you're going to die unless you're in a bunker underground. So I've been shown by the Holy Spirit that in a kind of metaphorical form that you won't be able to breathe. And yeah, from Ngātahoe and Tongariro to an area about 30 kilometers south, so you'll be killed by the toxic gas if you're in that area, unless you're underground so that will kind of be the death zone extending north from the volcano. We can safely assume that small towns like Turangi will be obliterated by this. There'll be a lot of small towns and settlements between those mountains and the lake. They have pretty small populations overall, though. They'll be just wiped out. So I'm not sure there'll be any survivors in those areas. It's going to be pretty bad. The earthquake will be followed by a series of enormous volcanic eruptions all over the North Island, but the one I've seen on Tongariro and Ngātahoe will be the biggest. I've also been shown Mount Ruapehu erupting. I was told that will be a smaller eruption that will kill 9 people, but that's going to be a number that's much smaller than the number killed by this larger eruption of Ngātahoe and Tongariro. Other people have seen that Mount Taranaki will erupt. White Island, there will be a very large eruption there. The details of these eruptions are beyond the scope of this video. But there will also be eruptions of the Auckland Volcanic Field and Maya Island in the Bay of Plenty. So Auckland, Maya Island, White Island, Ruapehu, Tongariro, Mount Taranaki, that's 6. At least 6 volcanic eruptions. So it's probably fair to say that most of the large volcanoes on the North Island that are active or dormant will erupt. So this is going to be huge. But I don't know if the timing for that. It did appear that the eruption of Mount Ruapehu happens around the same time that the eruption of Mount Tongariro and Ngātahoe takes place. So, and then afterwards, New Zealand gets invaded by China, and now it's looking like I need to wait for more details before I put a video out about this. But it now looks like actually it won't just be China. I think there might be other countries that invade New Zealand too. I had dreams about North Korea and Russia, North Koreans and Russians there too. I don't even like to talk about it, it's so dark, but it will only get worse. So the earthquake and tsunami and the volcanic eruption are kind of the warm-up that's going to blow people's minds in terms of how bad it is, but it won't even compare to the horrors of what comes next, because nature isn't malevolent. Nature, can kill a lot of people, but at least it's not enjoying it and trying to hurt people. But there will be cases, very sadly, in the coming war when New Zealand is invaded, where New Zealanders are killed in nasty, horrible ways, where in some cases the people are wanting to hurt them and kind of enjoying it, which is another level of horror. Experience of malevolence when someone's hurting you is very traumatizing. done research in psychology. It can really mess people up. Damage their psyches, and that's why war is so traumatic and hellish. In a lot of cases that won't be there. People are just getting shot and killed, and it'll just be soldiers doing their job, but there will be nasty, sociopathic, psychopathic, psychotic people on the enemy side, or just, who will kind of make it slow, and, just things like rape of New Zealand girls and women, and just, they'll do all kinds of horrible stuff, but that's war. War's really horrible. So the natural disasters are bad, but actually what comes after that will be worse. I don't even like to think about it, because it's just not good for my headspace. So it's another good reason to have go on a bit of a break after this, after doing these 11 videos, and go back into hibernation for a bit. I hope these details help you, though. I would just advise following the standard kind of procedures and advice to get ready for earthquakes and tsunamis. I will put a link to a document below from the US Geological Service, I think from memory, about getting prepared and being ready for a tsunami. That's really helpful. I believe the advice there can help people. I'm also going to put a link to an Al Jazeera video about Japanese philosophy for tsunami survival that was developed in the second half of the 20th century. That's really, really useful. It's called Tendenko. So they did surveys in Japan. Japan is a more collectivist society, so what would happen in the past often is that whole families would die together because people would be rushing around looking for their relatives to make sure they were safe, and people who perhaps only one person in a family unit was in danger of being killed by the tsunami, but then the others would rush around looking for them, and whole families would end up dying together needlessly. So they developed this philosophy by which everyone just needs to focus on saving themselves and not worrying about anyone else. In the 2011 I forget the name of it, the tsunami off Japan there, I forget the name of it, killed about 30,000 people. The name eludes me for now. Certain areas applied this philosophy, which had been developed based on experience of tsunamis in Japan in decades past, and some of the areas where they used this, no one died. And then there were other areas nearby that didn't use it, and hundreds of people died. So it's very effective. It could be really helpful if you've got a family, especially, even just for your friends, talking about how to deal with the tsunami, because the Japanese are experts in this. Tsunami is a Japanese word. They've had so much experience of tsunamis over the years. If we can learn from their expertise, it's really going to help us. So check out those two documents below. They could help you. It's good to have a grab bag with some basic survival supplies ready to go, so you don't have to rush around the house frantically grabbing stuff. This is actually good advice for the coming war too, if you have to flee quickly on foot. If you have the misfortune to still be in our countries when they get invaded, I am recommending that everyone, if they can, get out before the invasion. I just don't think you should be there unless you're going to join the resistance, in which case you have to be willing to die in a very nasty way, and you have to be ready to kill people. If you have the option and you're forewarned, for me, I don't see why you wouldn't leave unless you were going to do that, unless you're in the armed forces. So check those two documents out, and look into the grab bag thing. Just speaking pretty fast because I want to get as much information here as possible. Hopefully I'm not speaking too fast. Basic bit of food, water, maybe a tent, simple tent, basic kind of camping gear. I don't know what you'd put in there. You can do your own research. You're not stupid if you're watching this, so you can work it out. But look at having a grab bag ready to go. That's a really helpful thing you can do, not just, as I said, for the earthquake and tsunami, but also for this coming conflict. And people have been specifically given that advice by the Holy Spirit to take the step for the war, but the authorities in New Zealand, they give people this advice in some cases, I think, for tsunami, and it's just a smart thing to do. So have this bag ready, and it's gonna give you a lot of peace of mind. So 3 seconds you can grab it and be out the door, and that could save your life, because might take people from the outside a while to get in to provide relief, so it could save your life, that grab bag option. So look into that, look into those two documents below. I really recommend it. There's so much helpful information there. It'll really help take the edge off before this thing happens. But even just this warning is going to help you a lot and take the edge off the shock, because you'll see it coming. You'll know it's coming in New Zealand and Australia. Rugby's very popular, more popular in New Zealand than Australia, but if you're going to get spear tackled by a guy and he's doing it from the front, he might really hurt you, but you're probably not going to be badly injured. But if because you're seeing it coming, you can brace yourself. But if you get spear tackled from behind and you don't see it coming, you know, it could break your spine, it could kill you potentially, you could end up paralyzed, it could ruin your life. That's what could happen in this case. So, you know, this earthquake and tsunami in particular is going to be the spear tackle, but now you're seeing it coming, so brace yourself, take these steps. That's my advice, and I hope this is helpful. And I'm going to go back on hibernation for a while, but I'm happy that I put this out because I have peace of mind, because everyone has these dreams for a reason, and the reason is to warn other people. So I know this will help and do that in some measure, so I just hope it helps you. Thank you, and I will post a short video shortly after this one with a link to Kere Tiatoa's prophecies about the same event, which were put online about 10 years ago now. And he had dreams about this earthquake and tsunami, these associated tsunamis which will hit Wellington. He had those dreams, I think, 40 years ago now. So many other people have been seeing this stuff. It's not just me. Thanks, guys.